Hi, I'm Millie Swan, Executive Business Strategist and Heart-Based Leadership Mentor to CEOs, business executives, and people who are specialists at what they do and they just happen to be in business. Well, this is video 5, and this is where we bring all of the last four steps together into one whole piece. And I want you to understand that these simple tools, the rule of W, how you connect and motivate people, understanding about anti-clients or people who you don't really want to have around in terms of clients or even staff, and how you actually pull all these together to get exactly what you want. It's pretty easy when you can break it down, and it's been one of the most powerful transforming processes for myself, but also now for all my clients these last years. When this all comes together, and it happens really quickly, it's a really powerful process. People's lives, in their personal lives and their business lives, are enormously transformed. Let's face it, we're all silly busy apparently in business. I like to think of myself as a bit more productive these days than just being busy, which is what a lot of people really do. When you can make yourself really productive and you can start to drive the direction of your business from a heart-based leadership way, it becomes effortless. Things fall away that no longer serve you, and right things step up right at the right time, right when you really need them. One of the things that seems to happen a lot is that with my clients, they start to get really good success really quickly, and then they go, oh my God, it's all starting to come to me. And what really happens is, particularly, I'll talk to you about one of my clients who was just in the office this morning, is massive cultural change about how they live, where they are in their business and life, and how these things start to affect them. When I'm talking about cultural change, I'm talking about business in terms of the clients that they deal with and how staff function within the business, and how some people don't like the change, but when you allow these things to leave using these tools, other things that are better come more towards you. This is heart-based leadership, and it is effortless, and it just seems to get everyone into such a huge state of flow. Everybody talks about this at such a high level, but no one actually tells you the steps of how to do it. And that's what this video is about. It's the steps. So what are we talking about here? Well, I'll particularly talk to you about a guy called Peter. Peter's been with me for a little while now, and he had some enormous personal challenges with his relationship going on, and there was a lot of transition for him. His wife been married for years, but the kids had sort of left home, and so they were coming back to just being themselves. Peter really loves working, and he loves growing businesses, and he's done it a few times, but he's had the big burn and crash cycles that keep sort of showing up for him, and he was getting really sick of it. So we've helped him clear away some of the blocks around that, and now he's really starting to fly. First of all, we used the rule of W to help him to understand what is it he wanted to do in the business. Well, what he really wanted to do and what he really loved doing was out there doing the business development side of thing, walking and talking with the clients and bringing in the contracts. And he's working in one of the most competitive industries in Australia at the moment. So he's really succeeding. Despite what's going on in the industry, he's really growing. But he got this sense of like, oh my God, the business is going to take off. Is this going to be sustainable? Am I going to get dragged in? Well, he was getting dragged back in to doing a lot of tasks that he really didn't need to. So how did we start to resolve that? Well, he realized that one of the designers in the business needed to leave. And it was starting to cause a few problems with them quoting, and they weren't really getting all the great jobs that they wanted. They were a bit hit and miss, and he couldn't understand what was going on. He felt like he was spinning his wheels. So once we understood that the quoting was actually a problem, we said, why are the quotes taking so long? Why is there so many problems with the quoting process? Why were they only getting some jobs and not others? Why were they so far out of the mark on some and really making things happen on the others? We realized that the business had changed a lot in the last 3 months, and a whole different group of clientele had come on board. And the current designer who was there didn't have the skill set around client relationships. In actual fact, he'd never had the skill set around client relationship management, and he couldn't really make a great connection. He was a great designer, but he didn't have all the other skill sets that this business started to need. On the other hand, this fellow who was working with Peter, he was starting to not come into work. He was starting to be sick all the time. There was also mounting problems all the time. He was in challenging situations with other key staff in the business. And so he was pretty unhappy himself. Now, when this happens in a business, people deselect. I love it, because what happens is it's not a great cultural fit. How do we allow this key person in the business to decide whether he wants to stay or not? How do we allow Peter to grow the business the way he wants to take it and not feel as though he's not serving his own staff? Because he also wasn't serving his clients, and it was starting to affect the bottom line. And he was starting to stress again and starting to move back into trying to fix everything all the time, instead of stepping out and allowing him to just do what he needed to do. So we understood that we had another look at what we call the anti-client system. Who are the right people in this business? We used that beautiful process of really understanding who are the right people here. Were their roles changing? And yes, they were. And what were the identified tasks that they needed to establish? It became really quickly and almost immediately that the cultural fit of the designer wasn't right, and this person was rolling out a whole lot of other dramas that were highly distracting in the business. It's a pretty decent sized business, and it was quite influential in the fact that he wasn't able to move forward with the change of the clients and the change of where Peter needed to go. So what became really obvious was Peter needed to have a general discussion with this guy and ask him, we're growing, the work we're asking you to do, you're making heaps of mistakes. But we use the rule of W to take Peter out of the emotional challenge of caring so much for this designer that he could at least start to have a conversation with him about what was going to happen. Now, we know that this designer will leave. We know so much because when we looked at the job description of what's required as part of the cultural fit of the organisation, he didn't tick any of the boxes. In actual fact, he only ticked a couple. And this has actually always been the case. So making sure that employing the right key partners in your business and the right staff. And from this place, it became pretty obvious that we knowing that he was going to leave, and what were the next steps really for Peter to get the business going. The business is quite large. It has currently has about 18 staff, and we know that the size of the contracts that are coming on board are clearly moving into the million and multi-million dollar business stages as well now. He's still getting a few of the smaller ones, but his priorities, or his 80-20, was taken away from the things that he really loved to do. He was being pulled off task all the time, and it was really frustrating because it began a spiral of things, of the business going backwards really quickly. And he was starting to have challenges with his new clients because the cultural fit of one of the key people in this business wasn't quite right anymore. It's a pretty tough industry, and business can be hard, or it can be really easy. It also allowed Peter to understand that he needed to take the 80-20 rule and get back to doing what he really what he really loves to do. And we had a way of ensuring that there was a handful of really high-end contracts that he wanted to get over the line. So he then looked at key other persons in the business that could take some of the responsibilities off him about the pressure that was happening because he'd sort of slipped back and was going back into doing too much in the business. We were able to really understand what the issues were here. And with all of the tools, the rule of W, the 80-20 is just such a great rule. What's the 5 things you should be doing or not doing today in your business? And if you just pick the number one off, it can really start to help us to grow. What Peter needed to do was spend a full day back in the business, and he needed to address some of these cultural issues, not only with the person that was challenged, but also with a couple of the other staff about how to move things forward and get back on track so that he was taken out of the process. We already know that this next week will be enormously transforming for him, because as he's left the office, not only is he clear about all the challenges that have been happening in the last 3 weeks for him, he's really, really clear now about how to move it forward and how to get back to doing what he really loves to do. He doesn't like letting staff go. None of us do. But how can he do this in such a way that it's an unemotional process where both people win-win? This staff needed to leave and everybody knew it. And so Pete now had a really great way, because he understood that this person was someone who was highly certain and was highly motivated around acts of service. He wanted to do a good job. He needed to feel deeply secure in his job, but he wasn't. He wasn't doing all the things. In actual fact, he was making a big mess of it. So when Peter understood again what was motivating this guy and how it was all going against him, it allowed Peter to really see an easy way to have a great discussion with him about what the next step were for both of them. It's a really great way, these tools, that you bring them all together. When you can bring them all together, and how you can start to get everything you want. You can start to care for people in a whole nother way. It's enormously powerful. And I love the fact that you can multi-use these different tools for different things that come up for you. An anti-client tool is very much also an anti-staff tool. It can also be, then applied in different parts of the businesses. Anti-systems, what are the things that are not systems that are not working, and we identified that also for Peter as well. They're multi-purpose tools, but they're based around a whole series of simple things. The rule of W is how you understand what are the key motivating parts of, particularly for one of Pete's clients that he had, he couldn't understand why there was a delay. Well, when we realise there's a delay because there's another partner business that's underneath that massive business that he wants to work with, and that there's actually 2 contracts in play. When we understood that the timeline and what had been happening the last couple of weeks, the rule of W made it really clear all Peter needed to do was be a little bit patient, because all the steps he'd taken around the relationship building of that part of the business were in play. So what I want you to understand is that you can use these tools in any size business, in any capacity. And I want you to do it. I want you to go ahead, use these 4 tools, go back through the videos and really understand how it can all come together for you. If you're wanting to go the next step, I'd love you to reach out to me, and there's a button here below where you can connect with me, and I'm happy to give you a little bit of my time through a strategy process. I'm getting really full and I only have a couple of places left now, and I love what I do. I would love for you to contact me and see if there's an opportunity for us to connect, and if there's something I can do for you. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to hearing from your results about using the tools. Take care. Kind regards. Bye for now.